Minister, the Disability Capacity Review was published in July of 2021 and its remit was to establish the level of additional funding that will be required to address unmet need and demographic change in disability services by 2032. So we found that additional funding of between 750 million and 1.3 billion would be required by 2032 to address those issues. Now, the Action Plan for Disability Services 2024 to 2026 was published in December of 2023 with proposals to start addressing the identifiable defects. So it incorporated proposed additional capacity to help bridge the gaps identified in the capacity review by 2026. And so among the things proposed in the plan were 600 new posts in children's disability network teams, 900 new residential places, 500 people moved out of congregated settings, 260 people under 65 moved out of nursing homes, 800,000 additional personal assistance hours and 110,000 additional home support hours. Now, those are laudable proposals and very much needed to fill the gaps identified in the Disability Capacity Review. However, if we look at the recent budget announcement for disability services and the level of funding that was committed, I just don't seem to be able to square this circle. Now, Minister, you announced additional funding of 336 million in the recent budget for disability services. But once again, even DPROs and disability organisations have each year requested that this funding announcement be done in a much more transparent way. You did not set out that 290 million of this was for existing levels of service, while only a paltry 42 million is for the development of new measures and only an additional 4 million for capital projects. Now, the action plan proposed the delivery of an additional 600 new posts, approximately, for children's disability network teams, on top of the already funded but unfilled posts. Now, the reality is, however, that regardless of how many posts are funded, that recruitment and retention within CDNTs is extremely difficult. And for the third year in a row now, the vacancy rate in CDNTs has risen from 524 vacancies in 2021 in the staff census to 707 in 2022 and 817 in the latest report, which was in 2023. And it's not down to funding. This is down to a lack of planning and consultation in advance of moving to the CDNT model, and that promised planning, policies and structures were not put in place. And this resulted in many experienced staff leaving disability services, which has resulted in a chaotic and challenging work environment for the remaining staff. Now, proper workforce planning should have been implemented well in advance of the introduction of the CDNTs. And in the aftermath of the messy implementation of CDNTs, this should have been a priority. And Sinn Féin have called for a workplace plan in 6 different motions in this government term. Now, this has had an absolutely devastating effect on children and families who are suffering because of the lack of support and services within the community. And one young lad, aged 16, his name is Kyle. And on the day that you announced your budget in 2024, Kyle was put into an induced coma at Beaumont following an incident in his family home where his parents, who provide full-time care, were forced to call Gardaí, who had to handcuff this 16-year-old non-verbal autistic boy into an ambulance so that he could receive treatment, having had one of his many recent violent outbursts in his home. Now, his parents, Linda and Robbie, both work, but their entire lives are centred around providing care to Kyle, and they have fought for support and services for Kyle for his entire life. He has significant high support needs. He's still in Beaumont Hospital under sedation. He was placed in an induced coma because of a state of distress and aggression which required sedation. His mum says that despite pleas from 2017, when Kyle's school hours were reduced and multiple requests for adequate support services, they've been left in crisis. And crucially, Kyle's rights have not been met. And his parents are at their wits' end. They cannot manage the situation anymore without the required supports. They cannot care for him, and they feel that he has been let down by his state. He has not been allowed to be the person he could have been because he did not get the support and early intervention that he required. And if that had happened, he could be at home with them, able to live a life. Now they have to seek a residential placement for him, which is going to be in Roscommon, miles away from his home in Dublin, where he has lived his whole life. Kyle is only one of many in this situation, and we will be facing many more if young children do not get the vital intervention that they need right now to help them to live at home with their families and to work and go to school and get education, early training, go on to work. It's not fair. It's a clear denial of human rights. Thank you.